David Rubenstein talks to the authors
He could be a tweeter today.
who take on America's story.
They were thrown into jail, they were force-fed, they were tortured for picketing the White House.
History with David Rubenstein.
Tonight at 7:30 on MPT.
State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. Welcome to State Circle. The 442nd session of the Maryland General Assembly is in the history books, and it was indeed historic. Lawmakers met surrounded by plastic shields and extra distancing and managed to get through a 90-day session despite the COVID pandemic. Governor Hogan and legislative leaders signed 66 bills into law this week, the governor proclaiming it the most successful and bipartisan session in his time in office.
First of all, I just want to thank the presiding officers. I want to thank the legislators on both sides of the aisle for all of their hard work and their bipartisan cooperation over the past 90 days. I think it was a very successful session.
Lawmakers did override vetoes from the governor on police disciplinary reforms that Mr. Hogan said went too far. Also a ban on life sentences for juvenile offenders and the Kirwan education plan. Legislators sent to the governor a bill to begin sports betting in the state. Also a bill to let voters choose to automatically receive their ballots by mail. And after decades of complaints, lawmakers scrapped the state's pro-Confederacy state song. The governor earlier signed a multi-billion-dollar COVID relief plan and a funding package for historically black colleges in settlement of a long-running lawsuit. Tonight, we will hear from the legislature's presiding officers, beginning with Speaker of the House Adrian Jones, who sat down with MPT's Charles Robinson.
Tell me what you learned this year in this whole process.
Well, I learned that it's like baptism by fire, trying to put together a packet of bills, et cetera, that are in the best efforts and best needs of the constituents that are asking of us. And we had to deal with this pandemic, making sure everyone was safe. We had to get some rules and regulations from the health department, so all those were coming into place before we even was able to come back here. So but it turned out to be a very, I would say, very effective. There were a lot of issues that we wanted to deal with, and through Zoom, we could do them, and we did. But coming onto the floor and getting those bills done, that really, to me, it solidified that what we needed to get done. And the committees, our members worked extremely hard, and in spite of some of the challenges we had, because we know we had to get it done. And what I say often, and you got to get it right. You can't, and there were a lot of needs out there within the community because of the COVID, and people in terms of insurance. And we had a COVID work group, and the needs that were expressed to us through the various constituents, we tried to address through legislation. Couple of the same time that when we nationally, there was this the George Floyd situation, and we wanted to do that. I formulated a work group of a lot of judiciary members and others to come up with some practical measures and bills that would make sense and are doable, and we were successful. One of them, as you probably heard quite a bit over the last couple of days, that people are touting Maryland as as for number one, for the first state to establish the law enforcement Bill of Rights, and the first state to also repeal it. And it's sort of like a timeliness because of the fact of what is going on in other states. And again, that bill was originally vetoed, and we had the votes, and we overrode it. And you know, this is going to come into law within itself. But it was something that other states are contacting us on, and when criticism that some people say, well, you know, the officers, they're not going to go into the profession, they're going to be quitting. And what people are forgetting, majority of officers are doing what they're supposed to do. Because some of the, you know, the others, that, you know, is what we want to, you know, make sure we weed out. So, and that was, you know, the purpose, because, and we had some support from the FOP, believe it or not, in terms of when we repealed it, you know, LEOBR, and we got some, because we're putting some civilians on there, but you also need persons that on there as well that knows what you can and cannot do. So I think that was one of the major accomplishments that was done. And in my role as speaker, I can control what happens within the committee. I assign the committee chairs, etc. So we wanted to, number one, make sure that the appropriate committees were dealing with the issues that were, you know, that were confronting us, dealing with COVID, and what we could do to help the citizens to make sure that they were getting the services they need, trying to help with the unemployment insurance and everything that's involved in terms of trying to make sure that they are safe, and they're, you know, what kind of measures we would do. So, you know, the committees work very hard, the Health and Government Operations Committee, et cetera. So, you know, it just came out well, but my concern was I didn't know what was going to happen with this pandemic. Were we going to have another surge? But everything that we accomplished, all the bills in the various committees, even bills such as repealing the state song. I mean, this may sound like, okay, you know, so what, but that's a big deal. All these little things, like the little things that means a lot to individuals, and there's a larger picture that has a major impact on many. So I think with this session, we had a lot to be thankful for in terms of what we were doing for our citizens, and we just wasn't able to get everything, but the major thing that our citizens were saying to us, our constituents, we were able to get done.
I know you and the governor and Senator Ferguson wanted was to give some relief to folks who were hurt by this pandemic.
Well, we had the American Rescue Act, and all of this came about with the change in administration. And we also had what on the local level, which was Relief Act. The federal funds really helped, particularly those are under unemployment, and it was like very timely, because at one time we thought our budget we wouldn't be able to do what we're able to do, but with, you know, both our federal partners and which was some of that was put in terms of the Relief Act, we were able to address the concerns that our citizens were talking about, as I referenced before, in terms of the unemployment. Some of them were able to get they'd be able to get checks and on a certain income level. And so, and I think this, and it just helped overall the state budget in terms of what we were able to do. So it was a good thing.
I happened to be at Bowie when you signed the HBCU legislation. To me, it seemed very personal.
We finally got to this day. I'm saying that in behalf of a sister and a mother of 2 HBCU graduates. My brother, Bowie State. My son, Morgan State.
What do people need to know about that?
Well, that was a long process, an extremely long process. I remember being in meetings and trying to work it out with the TWIs, traditional institutions, and with the MHEC, Higher Education Commission, try to get this done. And we had the bill, and it went through several administrations, both Democratic and Republican, wasn't able to get it done because they didn't want to put the money in. And what people need to remember, this is the issue was and is duplication, program duplication, and that was a negative effect on the HBCUs. So we addressed that with the bill. When we had the bill was ready to go, but the governor, most recent governor, didn't want to put in even $100 million, and so we knew what the amount would be in order to be able to do that. So we finally we were able to overwrite it, get overridden this year, and we were up at Bowie, where my younger brother, he graduated from, and but I know all the presidents. We got two, actually all the presidents that are currently there. This is new for them because all the former presidents, they tried to get it, and during their terms they weren't able to do so. So this is a big deal, and it's spread out over 10 years. And to be able to work with MHEC, trying to get some online programs to be able to help them and not have the duplication issue, because that has been. And as I said at when it was the announcement of the bill signing for it, the other part that was needed was just for the Attorney General and the plaintiff sign the papers, and that was then that makes it whole.
You sat in that chair all year this year. What did you see, and what did people did not see from your perspective up there?
Well, for one thing, I didn't sit in the chair, so I stand the whole time. And for me, and I think you know me, and I guess it's something that bestowed upon us, those of us who are African American. We have to be better than good. We have to get it right, because you will be looked at in a different light than anyone else. You say, oh yeah, see what happens, and you get her up there. But we had a good committees, a good staff, and what I wanted to be able to do, everyone was in support of, and it makes sense for the times that we are in. And like I said, I never, it was a surprise to me that I was going to even be in this place at this time, in this state house that was built by slaves, and the first African American woman and speaker. So, and I just wanted to make sure that what I do, I get it right, because you can't have a do-over, in the lights of the public. So I enjoy public service, and I enjoy what I'm doing, and I just wanted to make sure that we can make sure everyone can have availability of services that they may not know that that are available. So I think that, and that gives me great joy when I can be able to help someone, help communities, and also steer someone in the right direction who may be going off the beaten path.
Speaker Jones with our Charles Robinson. Now MPT's Sue Copen talked to Senate President Bill Ferguson.
Senator, what for you defined this 2021 session?
This was the most extraordinary and historic session that I have been a part of in 11 years. First and foremost, we focused on what we needed to get done, and that was fight the virus, get support to Marylanders who needed it most, and expand justice across the state of Maryland. This year was defined by COVID-19, and this session was a response to it. And I think we were incredibly successful in accomplishing what we sought to do, which was to help Marylanders in their time of need, working together collaboratively with Governor Hogan, with the Speaker and our counterparts in the House, and we solved problems. And it was the best of what government can do.
One of the biggest issues was police reform. There's no question about that. What kind of difference will the package that has now been enacted make?
Fundamentally, everything we did having to do with law enforcement this year was focused on expanding trust, accountability, and transparency between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. We want to talk a lot about violence and crime. It is impossible to truly attack crime if you don't have trust between those who are enforcing the law and those who are expected to abide by the law. And so what we needed to do, given what we saw across the country, what we saw here in Maryland, where hundreds of thousands of Marylanders took to the streets to say the system isn't working, we came forward this year and put together a framework that will get us on a road to reforming policing. This is about going after the cops who make those illegal, awful choices and protecting the cops that are good cops that don't want to be working with those bad cops. We have to improve this system to improve trust and accountability, and that's what will make all of us safer.
But it was not without its controversy.
Certainly.
There were those on one side that said he didn't go far enough.
Right.
And on the other side said, when it comes to like Baltimore City, what does this really do to lower the crime rate? How do you address that?
I'll tell you, I've learned very quickly as a legislator that when you have advocacy groups on both sides who are dissatisfied, you've probably landed in a pretty good spot. And I think that's where we were here. I think we created a bold initiative that is a very thoughtful package. It's not perfect, and I think that in any good legislation, there are going to be people who want it to go further in one way or the other. I think what we did, the 188 members of the General Assembly, is we found the right balance to create a real framework that will start us down this path of restoring trust. It won't happen overnight. There's no piece of legislation that will do that. What it will do is provide the framework that if we implement it well, it will help us to restore trust, accountability, and transparency so that there is that sense of unity between law enforcement and the communities they serve.
So do you expect to be back here next year then, sort of pushing it a little bit farther along?
I think that we'll be dealing with issues around law enforcement and trust and transparency for years and years and years to come. This isn't the first session we've dealt with it. It certainly will not be the last. I think what we did this year was set the foundation. The foundation is now built. And so we have to start putting up the walls and starting to implement. And we're going to make tweaks and tinker here and there. But I think we put together the right framework that will last over time that we will be able to build from.
Sports betting came down to the wire.
It did.
What have we got?
Well, look, sports betting was one of these hot issues that got a lot of attention. But when you think about the COVID session, for us, that was what was most important, was serving Marylanders in the midst of an emergency. And so sports betting came to the wire largely because we had to get our core priorities done. We had to make sure that Marylanders had the resources that they need. We had to make sure that we passed a budget that was balanced, that erases the structural deficit for the next 2 years. And then we were able to take up sports betting at the end. I think we came up with a fair framework. Again, it's not perfect, but I think it will allow many businesses to be able to compete, and it also allows for minority businesses to have an opportunity to be a part of the program. It just was not quite as high a priority as some of the other major issues that we had to tackle this year.
And you said this was the session basically of COVID, of the pandemic. What stands out most to you when it comes to mind to think about what has taken place here?
I would say two distinct issues. One is that the beauty is that the light is at the end of the tunnel. This pandemic will end. And what we needed to do, as we got immediate resources to those who needed it most, was really think critically about what is this world, what does Maryland look like post-pandemic? How do we use the resources we receive from the Biden administration, from Congress? working with Governor Hogan, with the House Speaker, with both chambers. How do we set Maryland up for success in the long run? How do we make sure that Marylanders can create jobs and compete in the 21st century when we get out of this? And we did that. We had a $3.9 billion supplemental budget. This is historic. We worked with Governor Hogan the entire time to invest in our economy to set Maryland up for success. That's one. Two is around issues of equity and inclusion. This pandemic did not hit everybody equally. It had a very disparate impact, and certain communities were hit so much harder than others. And those that were hit hardest were the same ones that before the pandemic were simply had inequitable access to opportunity, and it was just exacerbated during the pandemic. So we had to build the foundation for a more equitable future, and we did, around health disparities, around environmental injustice, around creating wealth opportunities for intergenerational wealth transfer. It was both the basic fundamentals of government, building for the future, and creating a more equitable and equal future for everyone.
If you could cite an example of what kind of a difference that will make, what will the public see coming out of this?
Probably the single most important initiative, and I want to thank Senator Elfreth and Delegate Learman, who put together this Office of Statewide Broadband that is going to use $300 million of this federal funding to create an entire statewide broadband options and access program. Maryland will lead the country in availability and access of high-speed broadband because of the decisions that we made during these 90 days. When we think about preparing for the future, access to broadband is that future. And we're going to treat it like we would other public goods, roads or electricity. Everyone deserves not just access, but options when it comes to broadband. And I am so excited for what we will see over the next 18 months, ensuring that every single Marylander has access and options for high-speed, high-quality internet so that they can compete across the globe.
As you mentioned, some of the money, much of the money, if not all of it, for the broadband expansion is coming from the federal resources,
yes,
which are to a large degree limited. What is the state going to do to see that that is continued and that you can build on that?
Well, the key for this federal money is it is one-time money. This is sort of once-in-a-generation opportunity. It's New Deal-esque. And so we had to be very thoughtful. And what we did was we put that money into projects that are going to create jobs today. We have about $1 billion of capital projects that would not have otherwise been there. That means buildings, it means community centers, it means investments in playgrounds, in parks. Really, if we think about in the 1930s and FDR and how we created the Great Society, we did it because we invested in public infrastructure. And that is what we are doing when we are leaving this session, is we are putting historic amounts into building the public infrastructure of Maryland, creating good jobs, and setting us up for a successful future.
Finally, this is a year that has been without the presence of Mike Miller, former Senate President. How has that been for you personally? What has it meant as an institution?
In my office, I have a picture of the President Emeritus and I sitting together presenting a bill that was a bill that we presented last year. Oddly enough, it was on the digital ad assessment on multinational companies. And I keep it in the office because it was a moment where, it was in this passing where I had taken on the presiding officer role, and he was serving as a rank and file member, if there's ever such a thing for him. He wrote me a message, and he gave it to me 2 days before he passed away. That just said, "I'm so proud of you." And, somebody that has served this state so honorably for 33 years, that set us up for success. I know every single day I stand on the shoulder of giants and work with amazing colleagues. And it's something that he told me there's no greater opportunity than to be a member of the Senate of Maryland. And I think about it every single day. I just feel so humbled and honored to be able to follow in those footsteps. And it is certainly sad, but, his legacy and impact reverberates and will reverberate for generations. We are a better place because of his service. And I hope that I can one day say that I was able to do the same.
Senator Ferguson, thank you. And good luck in the interim.
Thank you very much.
Senate President Bill Ferguson with MPT's Sue Copen. Earlier this week, the governor appeared on MPT's Direct Connection to talk about the session's top issues.
The most important stuff really got done in a bipartisan way. While that doesn't usually seem to happen in Washington down the road, here the most important bill of the session was the Relief Act of 2021, where we enacted nearly unanimously. We had one Republican in the House, but voted against it. But everyone else voted in favor of our bill, which was the largest tax cut in Maryland history, $1.45 billion, to help hundreds of thousands of struggling Marylanders, small businesses and nonprofits to help us make it through this pandemic. We had a tremendous bipartisan cooperation on the budget, which was also historic, that utilized and spent all of the federal dollars that came in. Almost no disagreement on that. We came together on a lot of major things, but we didn't agree on everything, but we had record funding for K through 12 schools for the 7th year in a row, a balanced and responsible budget, record funding for school choice, and record investments in broadband, workforce training, and we continued strong leadership at the Maryland Department of Health, where we nearly unanimously confirmed Dennis Schrader, who's done a fantastic job as health secretary throughout the COVID crisis.
The package of police bills has been seen by many as the top issue of the session. It certainly dominated the last few days. Overall, in your view, does it make Marylanders more safe or less safe?
Well, that's a tough question. But first of all, we shared the ideal of finding some sensible police reforms. There were about 9 bills in the Senate, 6 or 7 of which we probably would have been ready to sign into law. We did let 2 of the bills that finally passed go in, but 3 of them, while they had some good things that we supported, like body cams and a number of other initiatives, they have some measures that are downright scary, and I think actually are probably going to have to be rewritten. We're going to have to come back and strike a balance, because I think they put both police officers and the public at risk. And so that's why I vetoed them. Obviously, the Democrats have 70% majorities in both houses and have the ability to override every bill. But these 3 that they chose to override, I think they'll probably be amended by the next session.
To see the full interview with the governor, search YouTube for Maryland Public Television. That is State Circle for this week. For all of us at MPT, thanks for watching and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
MCA Maryland has been on the job since 1927, building and maintaining the critical infrastructure in the Mid-Atlantic. At this challenging time, MCA contractors continue to provide an essential service to the community while strictly following the CDC guidelines for COVID-19.
University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, leading the way on Chesapeake Bay restoration, while guiding our state, nation, and world toward a more sustainable future.
The University of Maryland Eastern Shore, the only hospitality and tourism management program on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Serving restaurants, hotels, and tourist destinations from Ocean City to Hollywood.
MPT wishes to thank the following Leadership Society donors for their continued support.
Next time on Midsummer Murders.
We think this was an attempt to conceal the body.
I think it was how Dr. Dyer was actually killed.
An archaeologist is buried alive.
And she just had the find of her career.
The motive may have been the discovery of a saint's remains.
Is that good news for the village?
No, they already claim to have their own.
She was poised to debunk the village's holy martyr.
See if Barnaby can dig up the truth on Midsummer.